All right, now it's time for America's Talking, with headlines from across the country that you can find in your inbox with the Center Square newsletter, free at thecentersquare.com. Firearms policy being discussed across the country in state houses and in the Congress. Now in Minnesota, you've got Senate Majority Leader Erin Murphy saying that she wants to see a holistic approach to addressing gun violence in that state, and she said that includes regulating firearms.
I think it is really important that we take a comprehensive approach. And I hear my colleagues, my Republican colleagues, talking about that as well. But they call comprehensive an approach that talks about school safety and perhaps mental health care, but they don't want to talk about the weapons of war. If we listen to the families who've experienced what they've experienced this past summer, it is important that we address all three, and we're going to address all three. I don't want to leave this session without progress on this topic.
Now, what exactly addressing, quote, weapons of war will look like, we'll be watching out of that state. But there are other proposals across the country in California, Illinois, and beyond that go further to regulate the possession of firearms, what kinds of firearms, and just exactly where you can possess those firearms. But other states looking to go the other direction to give gun owners more freedom, and states typically are looking to allow people to carry firearms in certain areas, or to even lower the age of who can have a handgun. But again, these are all in the various states across the country dealing with firearms legislation. But in the U.S. Congress, Democrats continue to criticize the Trump administration, and in particular, you have Representative Jim McGovern, ranking member of the Rules Committee, asking a Trump official about last year's tax cuts policy that impacted certain segments of the firearms community.
And in this bill, you also got rid of the nearly 100-year-old tax on gun silencers and sawed-off shotguns. This is what I call the hitman handout. That's not mentioned in this bill either. So how did Republicans pay for all of these, kind of handouts? By imposing the largest ever cut to Medicaid, $1 trillion, and the largest ever cut to the Affordable Care Act and SNAP by adding $4.7 trillion to our national debt. But the resolution that kind of caused all that you guys are patting yourself on the back about doesn't mention any of that. Nothing. Am I missing something here?
No, I think you're straight on your talking points. That's what we went to say, and I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, okay.
I don't agree with you. I've actually lived the previous 4 years under the previous administration.
Now, that was, of course, one hearing in the Rules Committee and one comment about firearms from a Democrat. In a separate committee in the U.S. Congress, Republicans praised the Trump administration's focus on protecting the Second Amendment. Here is U.S. Representative Andrew Clyde.
Within the president's budget, I noticed something new, a new initiative focused on the Second Amendment. $1.4 million to a new office within the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division dedicated to protecting the Second Amendment from unlawful infringement. I say finally, and thank you. We are beginning to comply with our Declaration of Independence regarding the protection of unalienable rights endowed by our Creator. And it goes on to say, to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. That means our government is supposed to secure the rights endowed by the Creator. And this, finally, we have an office to secure one of the most incredible rights that we have, and that is the right to keep and bear arms, the Second Amendment of our United States Constitution. So my question to you is, how do we best ensure that this office is aggressive in protecting the Second Amendment and will never allow it to become an office of gun control infringing on this critical constitutional right?
Well, thanks for the question. I think part of that is to trust the team that the president has that envisioned this office, and then to continue to make sure that we give progress reports to the Appropriations Committee for those who have a great interest in this area, and to make sure that over the long haul, that culture does not become completely reversed to that what it was set up to do.
Would it help if we codified some of that?
I think that would be a great idea, yeah.
Okay, all right, I'll work on it. Thank you.
So the idea, having in the Department of Justice, for example, a agency that focuses on Second Amendment rights and the preservation of those rights, that being a Trump administration initiative. What happens if a new president comes in 2029? Could they gut that office? Obviously, something to watch closely. But something else that gun owners are watching closely is autonomous weapons being implemented by the U.S. military. In a separate House committee dealing with the military's budget, Congressman John Carter discussed this issue of autonomous weaponry with Daniel Driscoll, Secretary of the Department of the Army.
To be specific, in my district, there's a company that's developed an autonomous weapon system called the Bulldog that has demonstrated real promise in countering low-cost, fast-moving drone threats.
We've had the Bullfrog team into the office a couple of times under JIATA 401 that General Laniv referenced. They have tested it. The key to a future successful air defense is layered solutions at different varying degrees of cost. There may be times where you want to use a couple $1 million Patriot interceptor because the risk is so high, but you strongly prefer to use something like the Bullfrog, which is just a round fired at a threat. And for the Shahed drones, that round is really effective if you can get it to the right place. And what technology is doing is a human being would have a pretty hard time reacting quickly enough to a drone swarm to be able to use that tool, where technology with AI is probably there. And so very specifically to your question, Judge, we are testing Bullfrog.
Interesting to hear how that testing goes and just how much of your U.S. tax dollars are being used on those things. And that's just some of what America is talking about. You can get these and other headlines at thecentersquare.com.